one of the key function on creating a program is to organize all of your data and to reuse all of the codes that you have already created. These things are very important since there are features that are similar to the other functions or other features of your program being developed. In order to utilize this kind of technique, this is a technique called object-oriented programming language can be applied. This divides all of the functions into a simple class wherein all of the functions, methods, and variables are being declared inside its class. So suppose that we have created this application having data such as the last name, first name, middle name, and address of a person. On the right side, you can see that there is a list of all of these data being presented in a manner that all of those data being inputted on the system will be putted on this view. So to further assess this thing, a class will be created. All of those buttons have no code yet. Later on, we'll be creating some codes and we'll be reusing some codes that are important, and so that we cannot reuse or we cannot redo the codes that being developed. In Visual C# or Visual Studio, the creation of class is very simple. You need to go to the Solution Explorer and then right-click and add item, which is you have an option to add new item and either you put or select the class. Another option is to go to the project. Go to the project and then add new class. When pressing the add class, a form will be shown and will ask on what will be the name of the class. Take note, on naming the class, it must be related to the data or to the function of the actual program that you have been created. So for example, this data represents a person, so we'll be creating a class named person. So the class named person will be automatically generated and has a namespace of Windows Form App 6. Take note that when creating an application in Visual Studio, there is a namespace that they are talking about. Namespace are similar to all of those across through all of those project and classes being developed inside the project. So if the namespace is different from the other files, it will not be accessible. Right now, we have already created a class named person with the same namespace as the other files being presented. So now, on the actual program, we'll be creating a simple application that will first identify and accept these inputs from the user. Prior to creating those functionality, we'll be creating a function that will clear all of those text box in order for us to clear each of those entry in time that we are generating it or in time that we are trying to input some data. So now we'll go to the person. The first thing is that when creating a class, you need to identify on what are the things to be declared. So first, there are two types of routines or methods that can be considered. First is a method. A method is what we call anything, any functions or anything that you create or routine that you want to create that does not return anything. So right now, we just want to clear all of the text box that are inside our form. So now, first we will be creating a keyword which is the public. Take note, it must be public in order for us to access this function or method that we are trying to create. When we are creating a method, if we see the word void, it says that you'll be creating a method that does not return anything. So public void will be public void, then the name of the method that we'll be doing. So for example, clear data. And then we'll be having the curly braces, and then inside the clear data, we can put some parameters. What are the components that you want to clear? Or sometimes we can do in a way that we'll be putting the container and then we iterate through all of the container. But that function will be done on the more advanced part. So now, if you look at the actual form that we have created, we have different text box being generated. Last name, first name, middle name, and address. So if you go to the property of this data or these controls, you need to know what would be the name of these controls. So to go to your properties, you can go F4 and then you look at the name of the controls. So it is toggled. So here is the form. Here are the text box that we have already created. TXT last name, TXT first name, TXT middle name, and TXT address. Take note, when creating a class, we want to utilize what we call code reusability. So in time that we want to clear all of the text on that text box, we will not be recoding it anymore. We'll just call this class and this corresponding method. So now let's go to the actual class, and then what we will be doing is to clear the content of this one. So we have already know that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 text box to be cleared. So on the method, on the clear data, we will be accepting 3 parameters of text box because we have already know that they are text box. Okay, text box, and then so TXT first name, TXT last name, text box, and then TXT F name, M name, L name, TXT text box again, text box, then what we call text box TXT M name, and then TXT text box address. Okay, so we are talking about those data that being presented, that we are accepting 4 parameters which are text box. Take note that in case that this keyword text box is not appearing on your coding, you need to import the using system.windows.form, else it will not show the components inside a form. So now to clear that, we'll just create a function to call a function to that clear. Okay, either txt, what would be the txt, the text box that clear, or txt last name that clear, and then txt m name that clear, or we'll be using another way is to txt address. The address would be assigned into a double quote only, single clear string. So now, in order for us to utilize this one, you can also put on what cursor will be putted the actual entry. So if we press the clear, it must focus on what would be the first text box on the controls. So if you look at the form, we have the TXTF, TXTL to be the first control to be inputted. So TXTL dot focus, okay, or TXT last name, L name dot focus. Take note that every time that you create a parameter, it doesn't mean that the name of the control should be the name of the parameter. For instance, the TXTL, we have created another naming here which is TXT last name. So it doesn't mean, or it doesn't matter if the name of the control is followed in the parameters that we have created, unless you want to organize your class. So now, for example, we want to access this one. So what we want to do is to create an instance of the class. The instance of the class is the actual call of the class, or creation of an object of a class, in order for us to utilize the different functions and methods or variables being declared inside a class person or any class that you have created. So I'll go to the actual form. Here is my form, and then I'll go to the button save. In the button save, what should I do so that I can access this class person? So first is to instantiate person. Okay, take note, this is instantiation or creation of an object, the name of the class, followed by the name of the actual instance. So for example, PR is equal to new person. If you see this kind of keyword, it means that, or if you see this line of statement, it means that you are creating an instance of a certain class. In our case, we are creating an instance of person, and the name of the instance is PR. Okay, so further to access the class, okay, to access the method clear data, so you need to pr.clear data. So the name of the method, the name of the instance dot clear data. So take note, if we create the method to be, for example, like this, void, automatically this is private. So you cannot access that clear data anymore. So if I press PR, that clear data, there is no clear data being seen. So but if I change it into a public, you will see that the method clear data will appear. Okay? So PR that clear data. So it accepts 4 parameters. Take note of this: txtf, txtlname, txtmname, and txtaddress. So I'll just put the corresponding text box that we have created on our form. So txtf for the first name, and then txtlname for the last name, txtmname for the middle name, and then address txtadd for the address. So if you will run the actual application, it will automatically clear and focus the cursor on the next entry onto the last name. So for example, I type data here. So if I press save, it will clear. So if I type again, okay, so it will clear all of the controls. Later on, I'll show you the most efficient way to clear all of the controls in the actual panel. This one is a panel. Take note, all of these controls are inside the panel. So now, the next part is to populate the list view. We want to put all of those data onto the list view here, on this list view. So to do that, you'll be having a save button. This save button is already utilizing the clear. Take note, we need to save those data on the list view. But right now, we are not using database. We just want to put all of those data onto the list view. So now to do that, I'll be creating another method here, public void save data. Okay? On the save data, we want to get the name of the person, string lname, string fname, string mname, and string address. Now, in order for us to do this, we want to make all of those data, okay? We want to make all of this data to be inserted into a list view. So the list view is the actual list view that we are using here. It has a name of LVP person. So to make it accessible, to put this data inside the list view, we'll be creating another parameter here, which is a list view that will hold all of those data being inserted. So we have the last name, F name, middle name, and address. So we will be putting all of those data into the list view. How do we accomplish this one? So to accomplish that, we can create another, we will be inserting a code that will populate the list view. So take note, we need to have a list view item. Prior to insertion of data on the list view, we need to create a list view item. Each data being inserted into a list view is what we call a list view item. Unless if we are creating only one column one column for each list view, we will not be using list view item anymore. But in our case, we'll be adding list view item because we have multiple columns. So to do that, I'll be initializing a variable list view item lv say is equal to new list view item. Then I'll put on the first column. What is the first column on our list view? It is lname. So I'll be putting lname. lname. Okay. Then semicolon. To add a sub item on it, I'll be doing lvsay that sub items dot add. Okay. And then I'll put the fname, I think. So fname, and then lvsay that sub items that add, we put mname. Okay, let's see if we are correct. Fname, mname, and then address. Okay, then we'll be having lvsay that sub items that add the address of the person. So in that case, we are creating now a list view item which holds all of the entire row of the item that we want to insert. So in order for us to put it on the list view, the name of the list view should be identified, which is lv person that items that add. Then you put the list view item. So lv say. So now we have created a class having a function to save all those content into a list view. So take note, we are not using a database yet. So now, to make our code more efficient, we need to clear the data. So it's like the ordering is to insert, then afterwards we clear. So how do we do that? So we go to the save, and then we call pr.saveData. The first parameter is the list view, lv person, and then the next parameter is the last name to be added. Take note, it is a text. txt fname the text, txt mname the text, and then txt address the text. Okay, so now we have already created the saved data. Okay, so if you will be looking at and we want to run the actual program, we will be using this one. So we put this, and then when we press save data, it already shown in the list. So for example, I put my name, and I save. See, all of those data are now on the list. So that is very straightforward, very simple code that we have created to save the data on the list view. So now, if you want another functionality that we want to do is to clear or remove an item on a list view. So we can remove an item on a list view by doing this functionality. So you go to the actual person again. Take note again, we are using class. We are utilizing class right now. So now what I want to do is public void remove data. So the remove data represents on what would be the data being removed. So for example, we want the index of the actual data to remove, and then we want to have the list view or the container wherein we want to remove the data. Okay, so that's very straightforward. lv that items that remove. Okay, and then what would be the item? Is it the item or the index? Okay, it says that no. Let's see if we can do this one. IDX dot remove. Let's see that. Here's the code. Now we go to the actual form and then we go to the remove. Now here's the trick. We will be creating another instance for our class. For example, CLS is equal to new person. Okay, this is the what we call inefficient way, because we are declaring another instance. So CLS that remove data, then we want to list view the person. We want to get the item being selected on the list view. Okay, LBP that selected items sub 0 dot index. Okay, so now here is the index, and then we want to put the LB person. So if you run the program, it has now a functionality to save the data on the list view and then remove the data on a list view. So, but take note, when creating a program, you need to identify all of those what they call possibilities, because it might be that you want to remove the data, but it's not automatically that you need to remove the data. Deleting a record should be a you need to be sure that you want to delete the data. Therefore, you need to ask the person if they want to delete the actual data or not. To do that, we'll be creating a message box. Condition, then message box. Okay, so I'll just create a string so that it is not too long. String message is equal to, are you sure you want to delete who? So we instantiate, okay, we concatenate the actual data being deleted. LB, for example, we want to make it more systematic, so I'll be creating string name pname is equal to LV. To get the item of the list view, you need to do this one. So LV that item sub idx dot text would be the first column, last name, and then we put the m name plus LV items. Okay, LV items sub idx dot sub item for the next column, the text. Okay, so then we concatenate message. Okay, message, let's see if we can do this one, plus equal pinning. Okay, so there, so message box that show message box that show, then we put message, and then we check some parameters, dialog, I think there, message box button yes or no. Okay, is equal to dialog result that yes. If yes, therefore you'll be deleting the data. Okay, so I think we need to add double quote here. There. So message box that show the message, and then the title of the message box is empty, and then the type of button, message box that yes or no, and then if it is yes, therefore it will be deleted. So let's run. Okay, I think we will be able to use it now. Save, and then test. Save. If I delete, Are you sure you want to delete test? Then yes or no? No, it will not be deleted. So if I select, are you sure you want to delete the data, last name, first name being selected, then press yes, it will be deleted. So now we have created a functionality of the code of our program to delete and insert and delete a data. To continue, we'll be now creating a feature on the actual application that will edit or to update the actual data being selected on a list view. To do that, we need to select an item. For example, you run the actual code, you save the data, and then what we want to do is to edit the data being selected on the list view. For example, if I select this data, it will go to the controls corresponding to the actual data being selected. So for example, I put the data of James. Let's say the last name would be, then the name would be James, then middle name would be, let's say, then the address would be test. And when I press save, the data being generated or inserted in the list view, in order for us to edit it, you need to select the item and then we press a button to edit. Then data will be inserted on the list view. So it's a matter of reversing the functionality on putting the data on the list view, then putting it back to the text box being text box control corresponding to the data or columns related to the control on a text box. How do we do that? So to do that, take note that all of those items on the first item being selected is what they call the first column, second column, third column, and fourth column, and so on. So to identify which item being selected, you need to do the selected item or utilize the selected item on the list view or the selected item function on a list view. How do we perform that? So now we will be going to the person again, on the person, and then we will be creating a method public assign public let's say update data. So here we'll be putting what are the data being selected. So now first is we need to LB person. So we need to have a list view to identify if there's a list or item being selected, LV, and then the text box for the L name, text box for the F name, text box for the M name, and text box for the address. So if we have created this, if the insertion allows us to assign the data on the list view, now what we want to do is to assign the data being selected on the list view to the text box ready for editing. So to do that, we need to monitor or check if there's a selected item on the list view. Selected items that count is greater than 0. So therefore, if that is the case, now what we want to do is to assign the item onto the list, onto the text box. Lname dot text equal to LV that selected items sub 0 is the first column. Okay, then the next column would be the F name dot text is equal to LV that selected items sub0 dot sub items sub1. Take note, sub1 is the second column. Okay, so I'll just copy this data, this code, to assign it to the remaining text box. Text T1 is 2 is the, and then 3. Okay, so for example, F name, F name, then M name, then txt address. So if we run the code, so let's see what will happen. But we need to call this one first, update data. So go to the form again, then edit. Now, if you observe, for each code that we have created, what we had done is that we created a class or instance of a class. Now, is there a way for me, or is there any way that I'll just create one instantiation or one instance of the class, then all of those things should be, in that instance, should be accessible to the different methods, such as on the button click or on the item other method inside the form. So can we do that? Yes, we can do that. What I'll be doing is you go to the actual code of the person. For example, this one, I cut this one, and then I'll put it after the curly braces of initialize component. Here, I'll put it here. Now, what we are doing right now is that we are creating a public variable PR on the actual form. It only accessible inside the form. So if I go on the edit button here, edit button, what I'll be doing is I will not be creating another instance of the class, but rather I'll call PR that update data. So update data, and then what would be the name of the list view? LB person, and then the text box is txt L, and then txt F for the F name, txt M for the M name, and then txt address. txt address. That okay, text3 add. So now you'll be noticing it that when we click the button 3 or the edit, it will now put the data on the list on the text box. So let's see. So for example, I get data saved here. It's already clear. Test, 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 save. Then if I press edit, it will reassign the actual data on the text box, ready for saving, for editing. So that is the first step that we are able to do on editing it. We are not yet editing the data here. So how do we save the current changes on editing? So in order for us to do that, we will be creating a function here, another function to update data. But if you observe, what we want to do is to reverse the actual content. We will not be inserting, but rather we will be updating the item being selected. So how do we do that? So first is public, let's say save changes, save edit, and then public void save edit, and then same parameter, you'll be using the following parameter. Okay, now what we want to do is this one, save data, and then instead of doing this one, we reverse it. Okay, so we reverse this one, and then we put it in a way that this one, instead of the text should be putted, we will be reversing it because we will be reassigning it. Later on, I'll show you another technique to make this one more simpler. Okay, x equal, okay, then I cut this code. Okay, cut this code, then equal sign. So if you observe, we have already created this one update. So if I save edit, so I'll save edit, what I'll be doing is this one. I'll just copy this one, okay, because it's the same. Then go here. Then instead of this one, I'll say save edit. So let's see if we are correct. Okay, we'll change this one. Then now I hope that it will be saved. Save. Okay, save. Then test. Save. Then I press edit, and then I press this 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and then edit. See, we are now able to edit the data. But observe that when we do this one, 7, edit, okay, we edit this one, what will happen is that we did not clear the data. Now, how do we utilize the clear data? We will not be recoding it anymore, but rather we will be creating a call. Now, it can be that we do it here, or we can also do it here on save edit. So we can do clear data, and then put that text box, okay, txt f, txtl, txtmname, and txt address. Okay, so in that case, we will not be recoding it anymore. So we'll just call the function again. So now let's see the name, and then the name is okay. So if you do the editing portion, you can now see that data being inserted is, when we edit it, it will clear and automatically focus the data on the first icon. So we managed to create edit, and then we managed to reuse the clear data on our program. So that's how we utilize a method on our program. So right now we have just created a method. How about if you want to identify if the actual data being inserted has a duplicate? Okay, has a duplicate. Now what we want to do is we will be creating now a function to check whether it is existing or not. So for example of that, an example of that is what? So we want to check if the data two data is existing, or the data being inserted is existing or not. So what we want is to create a method here. So for example, we'll be creating a function int check, or say boolean. We will be checking if check data, and then we put the string lname, string mname, string fname. Okay, so what we want to do when create like this, when we create a function, it must return something. So I'll be creating a bool checker is equal to false. And then what we want to do is return checker if it is existing or not. Right now we are returning a false. Now how do we identify if it is existing or not? So in order for us to do that, we need to iterate through all of the data. So first is we go for loop, okay? And another is we need to put the list view again. List view, so that it would be our basis if there's an item being created similar to the data that we are checking. That length to identify our items that count, to check how many items are there on the list view. And then we'll be doing some checking. So for example, I'll just do this one. String name is equal to what? LName. So let's say, okay, let's see this one. We can do just string LName is equal to lv dot items sub I, the text for the last name. String fname is equal to lv items sub I, that sub items 1 text. That is your fname. And a string mname is equal to lv items sub I that sub item sub 2, the text. Okay, so what we want to do is to add more functionality, which is to lower. To lower is a function of a string wherein it converts the actual text into a lowercase, because when we compare it with the if condition, it identifies the casing. So it is case sensitive when we are comparing two controls or two texts. So if it is, for example, the same value but different cases, it returns a false. So we need to make it a way that it will be the same. So now we use to lower. So check it. We'll be doing lname that to lower. Okay, can be use that one, but I'll be using lname. And then another is I'll be using the logical operator n. So lname fname. Okay, I think we have an error here. So because we have the same variables here, let's say we put s lnames that to lower is equal to n fname fnames. Okay, so here I'll be using that to lower, and fnames is equal to fname that to lower. Then we have what we call fname that to lower and mnames equal to mname that to lower. Okay, so we're just comparing the data being presented here. If it has a lowercase, if they have what we call the same casing with the same value, the code or the compiler will identify that it is true. Therefore, it goes to our specific line of code that we are trying to add. So right now, checker is false. And if the lname on the list view and lname on a list view, and the lname being inserted from the text box, and with the fname to the lname, fname, and mname being inserted from the text box to the list view as the same data, the checker should be changed into true. Checker becomes true. So checker becomes true. Okay, so we'll be returning the checker. So now, prior to saving the save data, we go to our save data program, and then we'll be identifying what would be if it is existing or not. So save, edit, update data, and remove data. Then here's the save data. So prior to insertion, we'll be checking the data if it is existing or not. For example, bool checker check is equal to, I'll call the method checker. Okay, checker. Let me see the checker. If the name is checker, it's check data. Okay, we'll be calling check data, and then we put what are the needed parameter. LB person, then we need the L name, we need the M name, and then we need the address. Okay, so the address is coming from the front. Okay, so now we put semicolon to it. L name, I think we need to put this one, L name dot text. There. Then M name, L name, M name. Okay, let's see what's wrong. Add F name rather. There. And then M name. So if you run this program, it should identify if it is existing or not. So if check is equal to false, therefore we put the actual data on the list view. Else, what we want to do is message box, inform the user that data is already existing. Message box that show, then record exists. Okay, so if you run this one, let's see. Test a save. Then if I type again a last name and last name, middle name, and last name, F name, let's say different, it will save. Okay, so let's see what happened. Okay, test A B B. Let's see what happened. Save. Okay, it says record exists, but it should not go to that part because we have different M name. So let's see if our code is what is missing in our code. F name, M name. Okay, here, this one. So M names is equal to M name dot to lower. Okay, so if we run this one, now the code should be okay. Okay, now observe, if I type big capital A, small capital B, capital A, then big capital A, it will tell us that the record is already existing. Okay, but if I change it in a lowercase, okay, this one, still it says record exists because we converted the actual data of the list view into a lowercase and the actual data on the text box into a lowercase. So that is our checking if the data is already existing or not. Now, in order for us to fully utilize the update button, okay, so the checking or the checker, we will now be utilizing this one in a way that it will check if the data is existing or not on the update button. So here in this edit, so I'll go to save edit, and then what I want to do is this one. Prior to editing, it need to check whether the data is the same as the actual data being inputted. So I'll just copy this one. Okay, and edit it. Okay, so let's say else message box show record exists. Okay, so now LV person, I'll just change this one to LVP. Okay, LV, and then this is L name, F name, M name, and F name. Okay, so I think it's correct, but why it's okay. No. So let's see what is the error. Okay, so I'll just put the text because on our checker it needs a string, not the text box. Okay, so now here is the actual data being created. So actual code being created. So if we run this one, example, then we select this one and we edit it and we change it to B. Then say edit record exists. So it will not edit the actual data anymore because the other data is already existing. Okay, data is existing. So that is how you utilize a what we call a method that does not return any data, and a method or a function that returns a data. In our case, we created or used check data as a function, and the rest becomes a method. Now, I'm hoping that you have already familiarized what is a namespace and what is a person, what is a function, and what is a method. Those are the main foundation on creating a class and utilizing a class. The modifier can be public or private. Now, the challenge on your side is to assign an ID which is auto increment. So meaning every time that you add a data on the list view, it will automatically assign an ID through all of that data, starting to 1, 2, 3, and 4. You must create a function that gets a number or a global variable that is a data type, which is a number or an integer, and then every time that you add this data, it should be incremented by 1. Okay, so that's all, and hoping that you'll be doing the additional feature for the ID, and I hope you've learned a lot, and happy coding.